Hey, Rick.
Hey, Megan.
Well, it is Tuesday, August 13th, and you might have
Okay.
heard that today is the day that the bleep hits the fan for realtors. Today is the day that buyer's agent compensation is
Mhm,
no longer on the MLS, the multiple listing service.
mhm,
So
mhm.
um, everybody's world just got turned upside down because it was like a seller would list the house and they would have a seller's agent, and the agent would say, okay, I'll list your house for 5%, but I'll give half of that to a buyer's agent. It's like a finder's fee. But there was a big lawsuit, and there was a class action lawsuit, and it was determined that the consumer felt like it was price fixing or some kind of monkey business. And so now there's no compensation in the MLS. And I just put a house on the market, and I had an agent text me, and they're like, is the seller willing to pay concessions? It's like, listen, Joe, just here's what you have to do. You get a buyer, you make an agreement with the buyer. You have expectations, you set expectations, you explain how this is going to work, you have a buyer consultation, you talk about how you get paid because you have to get paid, and now you have a signed agreement. So when you go out and show houses, the buyer's probably not going to have 2% of $1 million or whatever, 2 to 3%. I just had one at 3%, not me, but um,
Mhm.
in their pocket. So they're still going to ask the seller to pay it.
Yeah, every
So
time.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure how this is all going to shake down, but
Well,
my brain hurts because there's different
yeah.
forms for different things. So guess what? When you go to an open house now, you have
Mhm.
to sign a form. Okay.
Really?
Yes. When you walk in, so you're with a realtor, you have to sign a form. It says there's like two forms. One says, I don't want representation. One of them says, yeah, I want you to represent me for this house. Like, I don't know how this is all going to work. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But if you have a realtor who's a friend, light a candle for them, say a little prayer that they can figure all this out, because
Yeah,
it's
there's a
interesting.
lot going on right now.
There is. And I
Wow.
just submitted an offer for one of our clients, and
Mhm,
the
mhm.
agent said, oh, you have to send over your buyer broker agreement. Well, it's like, no, I don't. It's like 13 pages long or what have you. And like they don't even know what in the hell's going on. I don't have to send you the whole thing. It has private information. I can send you page 5, but I don't have to send you the whole thing. Just like I don't ask you for your listing agreement.
Yeah,
She's like,
exactly. That'd be the same thing, is it? Show me
no,
your listing
well,
agreement so I can write an offer. No,
apparently
thank you.
this agent was like, no, it's not this. It's like, yes, it is the same. It's an agreement.
Yeah. No,
Anyways,
I'm with you.
so I have
Oh,
some.
well, listen, it's going to be an interesting few months as we kind of sort through the mechanics of how this is all going to work out, and it's going to change. But once it changes and we get used to it, it's going to be business as usual, and it'll be fine. But change is hard. Let's face it. Nobody likes change,
Right.
and we have to just adjust to that and then roll with it.
Well, here's what I'm doing. I'm rolling with it
Yeah,
since 1998. I'm rolling with it.
we've seen a lot.
All right, talk
These
to me,
days.
Rick. What do you got to tell us about today?
Well, there's a couple of things that we haven't talked about this, I don't think yet. When people don't know this, but when we've talked about DU findings in the past, right? That's we put a loan in the system, it runs it through this artificial underwriting platform, computerized artificial intelligence underwriting is what it really is. And so it
Hmm.
analyzes all the data in the background, all the buyers' credit and all their income and their source of income and assets and so on. But what it also does is it runs comps in the background, almost like an appraisal on the property. It's an
Hmm.
artificial appraisal of what it really is. And so in some cases, believe it or not, we get what's called a property inspection waiver. And so, well, what is that? When we get a property inspection waiver, that means we do not require a physical appraisal on the home. No appraisal required. That's
They
it.
should name that something else, because to the consumer that's confusing, because the consumer is
It
still
is.
going to have an inspection.
Yeah,
but
they have a home inspection, right?
a home inspection, but
Mhm.
you're talking about
Property
the
value
physically
inspection,
entering the
property
house,
appraisal.
yeah,
Mhm.
from the appraiser, yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about, also in every offer, we know this now, it's almost standard practice. It wasn't years ago, but another change, right? And every offer, we write into the contract that the buyer waives the appraisal contingency, right? Most of the time. So what's the difference between an appraisal contingency waiver and a property inspection waiver,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we got to think that through a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So when when you have an appraisal contingency on the purchase contract, that means there's still a physical appraisal requirement. The appraiser has to go out to the property and deliver a property value appraisal. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with respect to that contingency, it doesn't matter what the appraisal value comes in at. If it comes in low, you're still paying that price for the house. That's how
Mm-hmm.
that works. Now, when you have a property inspection waiver, there is no physical appraisal. So whatever value we have on that purchase contract is the value that the underwriter will accept for that home loan without the physical property appraisal.
Mm-hmm. Got
So
it.
it's different. Yeah, it's very unique. We don't get that a lot. I've had a couple in the past month or two, which is kind of weird
I
considering,
don't know. I mean, is there
yeah.
a way to say, as a consumer,
Mhm.
I still want the appraiser to come to my house and do the appraisal?
I mean, I guess you could. I've not had that. Yes, you could still
Well,
request that property appraisal.
I mean, you know, here's the deal is
Mhm.
that the good thing about the appraiser, many good things, but one of the good things is that they measure everything, you know?
Right. Square
And
footage.
so that's
They
the
check
only way
everything
you're
out.
gonna, yeah, that's the only way
Hmm.
you're gonna really have anybody check your square footage is if you
Hmm.
have an appraisal, otherwise,
Physical appraisal.
yeah, if you're suspect about, because some of the, some
Hmm.
houses, it's like 1,250 square feet. It's like you look at it and you go, okay, it's 1,250 square feet. But
Yeah.
once you get over, 2,300 square
Hmm.
feet, things start to kind of blur together. I know one deal we had this year, the listing agent had the square footage wrong on the MLS. And once our appraiser went out there, they found out it was 400 square feet bigger than what they had advertised,
That's
which of
unusual.
course we
That's
kept that to
unusual.
ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
But yeah, I don't know. I like it quick and easy and to get it done, but I also
Yeah, right.
know the more eyeballs are on the buyer's
Hmm.
purchase is good for the buyer, and it's good for
Yeah.
everybody to have it. But I see
Yeah.
the value
Yeah.
in the appraisal waiver too. I mean, but
There is.
if they do an appraisal inspection waiver, do they still have to pay the appraisal fee?
No, there's no appraisal fee.
Okay. What's the
So
average
the buyer
appraisal fee?
saves around $700,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. But let's talk for a minute too, but while we're on that subject, what happens? Let's say, for example, we don't have the inspection waiver, we do a full property appraisal,
Mm-hmm.
right? What happens to that appraisal if by chance that escrow falls out and the buyer doesn't buy that house for some reason? What happens to that appraisal, right?
Well, do they have to pay for it up front?
They pay for the appraisal, so at that point the buyer has already paid for the appraisal,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what happens to that appraisal?
I don't know.
Does it stay? Where does it go? Right? What if you have
It's
another
D
buyer?
it's DOA, except for if it's FHA or VA, then it's in the system, right?
Exactly right. So that's the key difference. We know that. So on a conventional appraisal, conventional now, that appraisal belongs to the original buyer that paid for that appraisal and the
Mm-hmm.
lender. That's their
Mm-hmm.
property. It's the lender's property. So if it's a conventional loan and that escrow falls out, you cannot use that conventional appraisal for the next buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Does no longer apply. So the next buyer, if they're getting a conventional mortgage, they have to go get another new appraisal.
All
Okay.
new.
Now, if you're doing FHA or VA, yes, the unique distinction is that they issue a case number on those appraisals. So those numbers follow that property. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you have an FHA buyer and you have the case number and you have that appraisal and that home falls out of escrow for some reason, the next buyer, if they buy the house FHA, they are required to use that same appraisal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, how do they get access to that appraisal? That's the big question, right? They didn't order it. It's not their appraisal, right? So what you do in that case is you actually have to go that case number through HUD or FHA follows that lender. So we look it up in the system, XYZ Mortgage did that appraisal, then we as the new lender request what's called an assignment of that appraisal from that lender.
Mm-hmm.
And that lender is required to turn that over without any dispute. They cannot say,
Mm-hmm.
no, we don't want to give it to you. It is a requirement that they turn that appraisal over, and that appraisal will follow the property.
So let me ask you a question. Buyer number one gets an
Mhm.
FHA appraisal, falls out of escrow.
Mhm.
Now there's an FHA appraisal on file. Buyer
Mhm.
number two is getting an FHA loan. They pull the, file, there's a case number, there's an appraisal. They get the appraisal. Buyer number two does not have to pay for the appraisal again, do they?
No,
No. Hmm.
no, it's already paid for.
Yeah,
It's
that's
already
what I was
paid for.
hoping. That was a trick question.
The only exception would be to that, and it's a rare exception, would be if the buyer that on the buyer number one that falls out of escrow, if for some reason they did not pay for that appraisal,
Mm,
that lender who has that possession of that appraisal will require that appraisal to be paid because they have to
mm-hmm,
pay for the appraisal. That's the
mm-hmm,
only exception to that. Okay.
mm-hmm,
But so the next question is, well, how long is that appraisal value good for? Is it good
mm-hmm.
forever? Is it good for till whenever they just sell the house again? Right? Well, the answer is this. It's good for 6 months.
6 months.
That's it. After
I
six
love it.
months, all bets are off. New appraisal.
Well, I think that was a lot of stuff wrapped into a very short time period, but I think anybody watching this will have a hell of a better idea of what is going on with appraisal inspections, measuring houses,
Uh-huh.
FHA, VA appraisals going to the next borrower, and the woes of realtors. So very good.
All in a day's work, right, Megan?
Yep.
Fun day at the
Yeah.
office.
Yep. All right, Rick, I appreciate
Awesome.
you,
Appreciate you,
and
Megan.
we will talk again soon.
Next week. Take care. See you later.